You know that thing you keep saying you'll do when the time is right? The apology you'll make when the moment feels perfect, the project you'll start when you have enough saved, the trip you'll take when work finally slows down. You carry it around like a letter you wrote but never mailed, always needing one more thing before it's ready to send. You tell yourself you're being patient, being wise, making sure conditions are right before you step forward. But something happens when you keep waiting for the perfect moment. The waiting quietly becomes the whole life. Most people do exactly this. They wait for Monday to start being kinder, for summer to start being braver, for everything to line up before they take the first real step. It feels responsible, even noble, like good things must come to those who prepare carefully. But the list of what needs to happen first never actually gets shorter. It just changes shape, adding new conditions, new reasons, new things to finish first. And a man who understood this too late lived on my street when I was growing up. Mr. Alden was building a sailboat in his garage. He'd started it the year his daughter was born, and by the time I was old enough to peek through his open door, the skeleton of it was beautiful. Curved wooden ribs, a proud keel, the beginning of a hull that shone with fresh varnish. Mr. Alden was a quiet man, gentle, with hands that seemed to know with the way some people know music. He was going to sail that boat down the coast, all the way to the warm islands he'd pinned photographs of above his workbench. Palms and blue water and white sand, taped to the wall where he could see them every time he looked up. He knew the tides and the currents by heart. He'd traced his route on a chart so many times the paper had worn thin along the penciled line. But every time I asked when he was leaving, he'd pick up his sanding block and smile. "Next season," he'd say. "She's not quite ready yet." The years went by. I went to high school, then college, then came home with a wife. And there was Mr. Alden, still in his garage, still running his hand along that same hull, still sanding. "Just needs a little more work," he told me, and I believed him because the boat really was beautiful. I brought my daughter to meet him when she was 5. She pointed at the island photographs and asked if he'd ever been there. He looked at me for a long moment, then laughed softly. "Not yet, sweetheart," he said. "Not yet." Then one October morning, Mr. Alden had a stroke at his kitchen table. He died before the month was out, before the last leaves had finished falling. I stood in his garage the week after the funeral, alone with the silence and the smell of sawdust. The boat was there, smooth as silk, gleaming under a single bare bulb, perfect, really, in every way that mattered. And on the hull, still sitting right where he'd left it the evening before, was his sanding block. The sandpaper was worn almost flat. He'd been preparing still, even at the very end. 40 years he'd spent on that boat. 40 years of next seasons. The route was traced on the chart. The island photographs were pinned above the workbench. Everything was ready. It had been ready for years. He just never found the moment he was waiting for, because that moment was never going to arrive on its own. Maybe there's a friend you need to talk to, and you keep thinking you'll do it when it feels easier, when the words come out cleaner. Maybe there's something you want to try, and you're waiting until you feel less nervous, less new at it. But the words don't get easier to say just by waiting, and nobody ever felt less scared by standing still. You get braver by starting, even when your hands shake, even when it's not the perfect time, even when you're not quite ready yet. And maybe you're 40 or 60 or 80, and you're still telling yourself you'll begin when things calm down, when the time is finally right. The same waiting that keeps a child from speaking up is the waiting that keeps a whole life from ever really starting. There is no morning when you wake up and everything is perfectly ready. There is only today, with all its rough edges, all its imperfections, and the choice to step into it anyway. That sanding block, worn down to almost nothing on a boat that never once touched salt water, that's what a lifetime of waiting looks like at the end. All that careful preparation, all that smoothing and readying, and the voyage never left the garage. The day you're waiting for is the day that never comes, so you have to begin anyway, rough edges and all.